The Black Sea was once one of the most reliable food arteries on the planet. In the summer of 2026, it became a war zone. In the first 5 days of August alone, railway grain shipments to the ports of Greater Odesa collapsed by 84.3% compared to July, dropping to just 40,000 metric tons. 90% of shipping operators suspended calls. No foreign cargo vessels entered Odesa region ports for roughly 2 weeks, and Ukraine's agriculture ministry slashed its export forecast by 54%. This isn't just a Ukrainian crisis, it's a global food emergency unfolding in real time. To understand how we got here, you need to understand what the Black Sea means to the world's food supply. Russia and Ukraine together accounted for about 32% of global wheat trade in the 2025-2026 marketing year, and most of that grain moved through the Black Sea. That corridor normally carries nearly 60 million metric tons of wheat and 30 million metric tons of corn every single year. When it goes dark, the ripple effects reach every continent. Ukraine's relationship with Black Sea grain trade has been under siege since the earliest days of the full-scale invasion. In July 2023, Russia withdrew from the UN-backed Black Sea grain deal, a framework brokered by Turkey and the United Nations to keep Ukrainian grain flowing to global markets. Ukraine responded by establishing its own shipping corridor that August, a bold move that let the country continue exporting through the ports of Odesa, Chornomorsk, and Pivdeny. Over the next 3 years, Ukraine shipped more than 197 million tons of cargo through that corridor, including 117 million tons of grain. It was a lifeline, not just for Ukraine, but for dozens of importing nations across the Middle East and Africa. That lifeline is now being severed. Starting in early July 2026, Russian forces launched a sustained campaign of missile and drone strikes against Ukraine's Black Sea and Danube ports. This wasn't random shelling. It was systematic, deliberate, and escalating. By August 3rd, Ukrainian authorities recorded 67 strikes on seaport facilities and 57 strikes on vessels. To put that in context, all of 2025 saw roughly 14 vessel strikes total. July 2026 alone produced 57 vessel attacks and 67 infrastructure strikes. That's an order of magnitude escalation in a single month. Prosecutors in the Odesa region confirmed that Russia struck 28 commercial ships in that month. 21 seafarers and port employees were killed. These weren't military targets. These were grain terminals, cargo vessels, civilian infrastructure. The timeline of this collapse is staggering in its speed. On May 4, 2026, a Russian attack destroyed a Kernel vegetable oil terminal in Odesa. Kernel is Ukraine's largest grain exporter, and that strike was an ominous signal of what was coming. Then July arrived. Between July 10th and 12th, Kernel's terminals in Chornomorsk were hit again, and the company lost roughly 45,000 tons of wheat and 9,000 tons of sunflower oil in those strikes alone. On July 12th, both Russia and Ukraine attacked each other's key grain export gateways overnight, following disruptions to shipping across the Sea of Azov the day before. Wheat prices spiked immediately. By July 15th, Euronext wheat jumped 7% to €231.75 per ton, its highest level since February 2025. By July 16th, Ukraine's main farmers' union reported the country had already lost about a third of its capacity to export grain via Black Sea ports, and it only got worse. July 22nd, peak wheat harvest. The moment when grain needs to move from fields to ports to ships to the world. That's the day commercial vessel arrivals at the deepwater ports effectively stopped. 30 to 40% of scheduled July and August port calls were canceled. Major shipping operators, including Maersk and Hapag-Lloyd, suspended calls to Chornomorsk entirely. By July 29th, the Black Sea grain corridor was paralyzed. President Volodymyr Zelensky acknowledged the crisis on July 23rd. saying Russia was stepping up attacks to choke the corridor. Ukraine's acting foreign minister went further, warning that Russia was trying to turn the Black Sea into, quote, a second Strait of Hormuz. Ukraine hasn't absorbed these blows quietly. Ukrainian drone forces struck back hard. Commander Robert Brovdy stated that Ukrainian forces hit 147 vessels between July 1st and 16th. Ukrainian drones struck more than 76 vessels in the Sea of Azov since July 6th and destroyed the Taman grain terminal on July 30th. Those strikes forced Russia to limit shipping in the Sea of Azov, through which a quarter of its grain exports normally pass, and slowed loadings at Novorossiysk, the hub that handles the bulk of Russian wheat. Both sides are now attacking each other's ability to export grain. The Black Sea has become a mutual economic siege. But here's where it gets truly dire for Ukraine specifically. The total volume of agricultural exports from August 1st through 6th reached just 312,900 metric tons, compared to 784,500 metric tons for the same period in July. That's a 60.1% drop. Export revenue fell 38.4%, from $326.9 million to just $201.5 million. Monthly cargo throughput at Ukraine's Black Sea ports dropped from approximately 6 million metric tons to 4 million. Storage and cargo accumulation capacity declined by roughly 2.5 million tons per month. At least 4 of Ukraine's 13 grain export terminals suspended grain purchases altogether. And that 84% figure isn't abstract. 40,800 metric tons of railway grain shipments. That's all that moved in those first 5 days of August. Ukraine's agriculture ministry now projects the country may export only about 29.6 million tons of agricultural products in the 2026-2027 marketing year, down 54% from an earlier estimate of 64.4 million tons. Wheat exports alone could plunge 53% to just 8.3 million tons. In dollar terms, agricultural exports generated $22 billion for Ukraine last year. Deputy Minister of Economy Taras Vysotsky estimated that disruptions to Odesa's deepwater export corridor cost the Ukrainian economy as much as $900 million every single month. Total sector losses could range from $1.5 billion to $3 billion. The alternatives are genuinely grim. The Danube River ports handled 8.9 million tons in 2025, compared with 73.3 million through the Black Sea ports, so the river was already far too small to replace maritime trade. And then, drought struck. The Danube in Romania reached its lowest water level since 1996, suspending ferry crossings and preventing grain barges from continuing their routes. As of July 19th, water flow was less than half the average July norm. Land routes through Poland and Romania face a different problem. On August 9th, Russian forces shifted tactics and struck a bridge on the M15 Odesa-Reni highway, which connects southern Ukraine with Moldova and Romania. The Institute for the Study of War concluded that Russia is deliberately targeting alternative land routes to hinder Ukrainian grain exports and weaken the broader economy. Ukraine and Romania reached an agreement to increase grain flows through Romania's Constanta port, but no overland or river route can handle the volumes the Black Sea corridor once carried. And then there's the crisis happening on Ukrainian farms right now, behind all of these numbers. With ports blocked and export routes destroyed, domestic grain prices have collapsed. Purchase prices for oilseeds and grains declined by an average of 30%. The Spike Cop to Odessa index for corn fell to $200 a ton, food wheat to $198, feed wheat to $188. Many farmers are being forced to sell their crops at a loss. Ukrainian farmers owed banks $3.6 billion as of June 2026, with $1.45 billion due to be repaid within the next 12 months. The Ukrainian Agri-Council is warning of a wave of agricultural bankruptcies that could trigger a broader banking crisis. These aren't hypothetical risks. This is the financial reality farmers face right now, during harvest season, with nowhere to send their grain. A storage catastrophe is also looming. If the export situation doesn't improve, Ukraine's approximately 59 million metric tons of grain storage capacity could be fully exhausted as early as November. By the end of fall, there may be a storage shortfall of roughly 11 million metric tons. Grain that can't be stored rots. The Ukrainian Agri-Council put it plainly. The situation at ports in the Odesa region has reached a critical point. Systematic Russian shelling is destroying Ukraine's logistical heart. Zoom out from Ukraine, and the picture darkens further. The Middle East and Africa face the greatest exposure, given their heavy dependence on Black Sea grain supplies. Russia's own Union of Grain Exporters and Producers issued a stark warning that in the poorest countries, this disruption will trigger famine. Wheat prices already climbed nearly 25% above their January 2026 levels, reaching their highest point in 2 years, and that increase is compounded by widespread drought affecting crop conditions across the northern hemisphere. Total shipments out of the Black Sea in late July were down more than 40% compared to a year earlier. That's Russian and Ukrainian grain combined. This infrastructure war is strangling one of the world's most critical food arteries. Diplomacy is struggling to keep pace. Turkey, which controls the Dardanelles and the Bosphorus and sits at the gateway to the Black Sea, stepped into the crisis. Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan stated, quote, "Unfortunately, our warnings are coming true. The war has spread to the Black Sea. Initially, military ports and vessels were targeted, but now merchant ships are being attacked indiscriminately," end quote. Turkey proposed a moratorium on attacks on ships and maritime-related facilities and restricted commercial ship transits through the Dardanelles. But that proposal carries serious complications. Ukrainian analysts warned that a moratorium limited to halting strikes could actually benefit Russia more than Ukraine. If the arrangement constrained only Ukraine's capabilities, Russia would gain time to restore its shipping routes, stabilize its shadow fleet, expand oil exports, and reinforce military bases in occupied Crimea. Turkey's initiative may be well-intentioned, but it could inadvertently hand Moscow a strategic advantage. Russia's defense ministry claimed it was attacking ships and ports being used to support Ukraine's war effort. Ukraine responded by filing a request for the United Nations Security Council to conduct an urgent investigation, calling Russia's actions targeted terrorism and accusing it of deliberately endangering the world's food supply. Zelensky's government approved loan assistance for farmers that lowers borrowing costs, and more measures are planned to expand storage and open alternative export routes. Kyiv also requested grant aid of €220 million from the European Commission to help small and medium-sized farmers cover their loan interest. But these are band-aids on a hemorrhage. What's unfolding now is something that hasn't happened at this scale since the earliest months of the invasion. The weaponization of food. The deliberate destruction of agricultural export infrastructure as a tool of economic warfare. And unlike 2022, when the UN and Turkey managed to broker a grain deal within months, there is no diplomatic framework in place to stop this. The UN deal collapsed in 2023. The replacement corridor Ukraine built on its own is now in ruins. Russia appears to be escalating rather than pulling back, extending its strikes from ports to highways to bridges to every alternative route Ukraine tries to open. Ole Komenko, CEO of the Ukrainian Agribusiness Club, has been warning about what this means for the long-term viability of Ukrainian agriculture. It's not just this season's exports at risk. If farmers go bankrupt, if storage fills beyond capacity, if fields go unplanted because there's no viable path to get the harvest to market, Ukraine's position as one of the world's top grain exporters could be permanently diminished. And the countries that depend on that grain, nations across North Africa, the Horn of Africa, and the Middle East, have no easy substitutes. Bohdan Lukianchuk, owner of agricultural company Growex, represents the thousands of farmers caught in this squeeze, selling at a loss, unable to service their debt, watching crops pile up with no ships to carry them away. The Black Sea is going dark. 84% of grain shipments gone in a matter of days. 54% of projected exports potentially wiped out for the entire marketing year. $900 million a month draining from Ukraine's economy. Global wheat prices up 25%, with the worst still ahead. This is what a food crisis looks like before it reaches its peak. The grain is sitting in Ukrainian fields and silos with nowhere to go. The ships aren't coming, the missiles keep falling, and the world, for the moment, is watching.